Bassoonists, I wanted to take apart an etude that you might be working on or that you might work on in the future and break it apart from the very beginning, how I would play it from the very first time I see it, how I would break it up, the specific things I might practice on in this particular etude, and just some strategies for how to practice this on your own. So the etude I chose was number 4 from Julius Weissenborn's 50 Advanced Studies. This is a really common one that comes up a lot, so I wanted to do it for you. Before we get started, my name is Dr. Natalie Law. If this is the first time we're meeting, I'm a professional bassoonist, and I love to help people learn how to play the bassoon, improve your skills, and feel confident playing this instrument. So if that's a topic of interest to you, please make sure you're subscribed to the channel. Give me a thumbs up if the video is helpful for you. And let me know any questions or thoughts that you have down in the comment section. And in particular, I'd love to know, do you like this type of video? Is this helpful? What other etudes or solos would you like to see me break apart and work on? So here we go. This is number 4. So the very first thing I usually do when I'm looking at an etude for the first time is just sort of look at it, kind of figure out what's going on here, and then I play through it. Looking at the key, there's an F sharp in the key signature. It doesn't look like there's too many accidentals in the piece. Sometimes when you see a lot of accidentals, that can be an indicator that they're that it's in a minor key, but this one in particular is in a major key. I'm noticing there's going to be some tenor clef in here, so I'm going to watch out for the tenor clef. And I'm noticing that there's a lot of flick notes. There's a lot of flicking in this one, especially when you're slurring upward. So I know that's probably something I'm going to have to work on as I do this. And of course, I've played this before, and I have multiple students who've worked on this and are working on this particular etude. But you know, I'm still going to try and go through the way that I would if I were you. So here we go. I'm going to try and just play through the whole thing just to get a sense of it. I'm going to pick a slower tempo than I might if I were performing this, just to make sure that I can get everything. So here we go. So now I have a sense of the piece, how it goes, maybe some difficult parts that I'm gonna have to go back and break down. But let's talk about a couple things. There's kind of a lot in this little etude. There's a lot of things on the page. So in case you didn't know, the 2 little slash marks that happen after those fermatas, that's a caesura. So it's a pause, and the length of that pause is interpretive. So I like to take plenty of time. I might even take longer than what I did in this little playthrough to give yourself a chance to breathe and also to prepare for the next thing. So, and in this case, what makes it even more tricky is that a lot of times after the fermata, there's a switch of the dynamic. So there's a lot of back and forth between piano and forte. And so the pause also allows you to kind of prepare, okay, I got to change dynamic levels, which I don't think I demonstrated that super well in this little read through, but I'm going to work on that as we go through. In the beginning, it's piano dolce. Dolce means sweetly. So very sweet, very lyrical piece. There's a F espress, that's short for espressivo or expressive, and kind of along the same lines as sweetly, but I would say expressive, you know, is even more so. Really lean into things a little bit more, maybe take your time on certain notes, you know, really feel it. I would say would be the difference there with espresso. We've got another espresso towards the end, and we've got some diminuendos, a ritardando at the end, which means you're going to slow down. And of course, the pianos of fortes, I think, are a huge part of this. Like this piece really comes to life when you show the difference in dynamics. So, but the other thing I mentioned before is flicking, just like a technical issue in here, and it comes to life right at the beginning. And you also have to make sure on your F sharps and Gs that your half hole is open. So I would take some time on those first couple measures to kind of work through each of these. That G also tends to want to not settle in too. So watch your tuner for that. Make sure that your half hole is open enough for the G and F sharp. And if the word flicking is a little bit foreign to you, I'm going to link a video up above of how, like an intro to flicking and what exactly it is, how to do it, how to practice it, that you can watch. And I encourage you to check out that video if you feel like flicking is an area of weakness for you, which for a lot of people it is. A lot of us kind of hear flicking and ignore it, but it is actually very important. In this piece, it really exemplifies why you need it, because it's just nearly impossible to play those slurs cleanly without flicking with your thumb. So after working through those first couple measures, another thing that comes up pretty quickly in the 1, 2, 3, 4, fourth measure, the G to E slur. You might find that high E doesn't want to speak with the regular E fingering, and so you might want to lift your first finger in your right hand, your index finger in your right hand, and that makes that slur just a little bit easier. Yeah, so you get that kind of pause when you play with the normal fingering. So just keep that in mind. That's a nice slur fingering for that high E. Let's keep going. Okay. All right. This is another spot where flicking and being aware of your half holes is just absolutely critical. It's really hard to kind of figure out how to voice, like how to get the inside of your mouth to accommodate all those notes. You kind of have to make some quick shifts inside. You know, you can't play the high C the same as you do lower in the staff. So I almost feel kind of like be da 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 ee-yaw, ee-yaw, ee-yaw. Like I do feel some kind of quick motions in the back of my throat to be able to accommodate all those notes, because if you don't accommodate them, well, it's still coming out for me, but it's not quite as pretty, I suppose. So with sort of quick voicing, especially that. Yeah, that B to C, that big leap there. I'm really thinking hee-yaw, hee-yaw, hee-yaw. And that kind of happens multiple times throughout here. It happens again, but it's even more difficult right after this because it's piano. So I think one key to making sure that the piano works well is making sure that the forte right before it is actually forte, so that you really hear a difference. Because it's easier to get louder, it's a little bit more difficult to get softer. So let's make the forte before it louder. Yeah, and you might hear some hesitations in notes when you go to piano. That's just an indication you need to push a little bit more air through and have more supported air coming from your abs. If you're not supporting the air, if you're not really pushing it through, you're gonna have notes that don't speak. All right, and then we kind of keep going, similar to the beginning. And this is different from the beginning because it's, instead of piano dolce, it's forte espressivo. So definitely louder and more expressive, okay? And I really think that accent there really is nice. I feel like it's a nice, that accent really kind of, it just puts a nice little end cap on that little phrase there. Yeah, let's try it from the forte espressivo to the end of that little phrase. So try to have a little diminuendo. Let's keep going. We have more of the hee-haws coming up here because we have some big leaps. This one is tricky, not just because of the hee-haws that you have to do in your voicing to be able to get those intervals, but also you'll have to use an alternate fingering for that F sharp on the fermata. Because if you try to do the normal F sharp fingering, it usually doesn't come out. So check out some alternate fingerings for that. I will maybe throw one or two up on the screen that you could use. If the normal fingering's working fine for you and it's not sort of stalling before you play, great. Just keep on doing that. Again, here we're a piano followed by a forte. So it helps to make the forte really forte so that the piano doesn't have to come down quite as much. And remember that the air has to support through the piano in particular, otherwise you're going to deal with notes dropping. So let's start the phrase before with the forte. Okay. And obviously, I think dynamics is one thing you can always work on. I mean, you can always make the louder, louder, and the softer, softer. We really want to try and expand our dynamic range. I think this one's really asking you to search for the depths of your dynamic range. Not so much on the forte side, but definitely on the piano side. All right, and we finally have a mezzo forte, something in between at this next spot. And this is one of those ones where you really have to find your hee-haws through here, especially because it's slurred. Yeah, that one's tricky. Kind of like we were talking before. figure out those little voicings and use lots of air to work through those. There's definitely some half-full and flicking business in there that you might have to work out. And then the end is very similar to things that come before. So I would, because it's a repeat of something that's happened before, I would be even more espressivo. I would put more diminuendo. I'd do more retard than what you did previously, because it's the very end and it's just sort of the last punctuation of the piece. So let's try the whole thing all together and with all of those things in mind. There's Etude. If you want to see more videos like this, please let me know. I'd love to make some more kind of tutorial videos on specific etudes, specific solos. Just kind of let me know what might be helpful for you. And also I want to mention, if you liked this video, if this was helpful for you, you might consider taking bassoon lessons. If you don't have someone that you're working with locally, I do teach Zoom online private lessons. I'll link down to where you can look into that more, and you can always email me if you have questions. But this is something that we do in lessons, as I walk you through how to practice things, you play for me. And the best part is that you can get customized, specialized feedback for exactly what you're working on. So that's the nice part about lessons, for sure. So if this video was helpful for you, please give me a thumbs up and make sure you're subscribed to the channel, and let me know any thoughts or questions down in the comments, and I'll see you next time.